Okay, so
Yep,
it's
I got the
just
notice. It's being live streamed.
awesome. Yay, look at us
So
go.
meeting is now being streamed live.
Good morning, everybody. I'd like to thank you for joining us and make note that due to some ongoing renovations and equipment installation at council chambers, we're in a hybrid situation today, and I appreciate everybody's patience as we switch back and forth. It's one of the fortunate things about technology is the ease of getting back into it. One of the unfortunate things is it takes away from some of the flow, and we appreciate your patience. So with that, I'd like to call the meeting to order, and I'll start with the land acknowledgement. As we gather, we would like to acknowledge on behalf of council and our community that we are meeting on the traditional territory of the Algonquin people. We would like to thank the Algonquin people and express our respect and support for their rich history, and we're extremely grateful for their many and continued displays of friendship. We also thank all the generations of people who've taken care of this land for thousands of years. And with that, Ms. Eric, can we have the roll call, please?
Okay, sorry about that. Okay, so Chair Eamon,
Present.
Councillor McWhorter,
Present.
Councillor Larry,
Present.
Mayor Sydney,
Present.
Chair Eamon, we have quorum.
Great, thank you very much. Are there any declarations of interest? Seeing none, we'll move forward, and we will move to C1, which is the Town Hall monthly renovations.
I do have that as a presentation, and just give me a second to figure out how to get it up here and share my screen.
Great, thank you.
Just sorry about this, gentlemen.
That's okay.
Okay, I have to try this a different way because it's not letting me do it through my eScribe portal. So we will. Okay, this should launch now. And then we will connect it in. I'm assuming no one can see that yet, right?
Not yet, no.
Okay. Try this again. Can we see that? Oh, that's not the right one. Now this one works. Just
Yeah, it's there.
Yeah, it's loading. Yeah, it's here.
it's good. Yeah, it's not the right one.
Oh,
We're gonna try this again.
okay. It says it's the same one I have on my screen.
Yeah.
Or on
Okay.
what?
Does everybody see that?
Yeah.
Yes. Okay.
Yep.
Yay.
Okay. And so our committee members, when you want to ask a question, just please just interject verbally, because when it's up, I can't see who you are. So who's making this presentation?
I am, Mr. Chair.
Okay, thank you. If you want to proceed.
Okay, great. So in terms of the overview, this is the first of many monthly updates. So I'll take just a little bit of time to do an overview of the project and its scope so that members at home can kind of get a true sense of the scope. Review the contractor, the budget, some key considerations as we proceed with the project, timeframes, some temporary accommodations, and also just a reminder on the working from home provisions that we've also updated staff on, just to be very clear on what that entails as part of this renovation, but just generally as a corporation. And then the permanent accommodations in terms of the staff teams and where they'll be located. And I won't go into the finishings So just project scope, the town hall was constructed in 2 phases in 1970 and 1985, beginning with the police station, and then the 2-story addition in 1985. There have been very limited upgrades to the property over the years. And the court's lease expired on December 31st, 2021, and we're working towards hopefully having them relocate at Renfrew County Place where there's synergies with other related services. Ray Zabak, working for a firm out of Kingston, was awarded architectural and project management services for this project. And as part of this, we did the reno of the council chambers, including technology right at the outset of the term, last Q4 2022. HVAC and the roof repair on the old detachment was awarded in 2022 and were completed, fully completed. So that work is done. And one of the main focuses is to renovate the old detachment area, which has been vacant for many years, to accommodate 2 things. One, the Renfrew and district health units. And secondly, the Ottawa Valley Business Hive in Renfrew, which is going to include our economic development team, Community Futures Development Corp of Renfrew County. I don't know if
Could somebody shut off their mic, or everybody shut off their mics if you don't mind? There's some background noise. It sounds like a party or a dispute about squirrels.
Okay. Okay, we're good. So the health unit is a tenant coming into our space. And the second one is the Ottawa Valley Business Hive in Renfrew, which includes our economic development team, Community Futures Development Corp of Renfrew County, Renfrew and Area Chamber of Commerce, Renfrew BIA, and Enterprise Renfrew County. So we're very excited about that initiative. And also there'll be some hoteling, i.e. desk space for other businesses in town to utilize as needed. We're also addressing accessibility. There's 3 accessible washrooms as part of the project, and I'll outline where those lie. And also we're making sure our service counters are accessible in keeping with legislation. And the rest of the project is just refreshing other spaces and grouping staff based on synergies. So next slide, please. So I apologize for my artistic pursuits here, but I just wanted to show the detachment area and what it looks like. So the area right off the lobby will be the business hive. There's 2 offices, a general area where there'll be some cubicles and a meeting room, and then kind of top right corner of that pink area will be like a lunchroom kind of storage area. They will be accessing an accessible washroom just off the lobby that the other parts of the building will utilize. The health unit will be in the green area and at the back, which was at one point, I'm told, the boardroom, but then was changed into change rooms, will be the program area. So they will be running many of their programs here in downtown Renfrew, and that will be the program space. Their entrance will be off of Plant Street with some parking in the vicinity. And then towards the back of the space, or towards Raglan Street, where kind of the cells are now, will be an open staff area that they will have some staff come in and out and work out of. And there's an addition of a secondary door there. And then there's going to be some fenestration, some windows added on that facade towards Raglan Street. Well, next slide. I just wanted, I'll just quickly on this one is the mailroom, the council might know, will be a bit of a kitchen area, and we're relocating print and mail in that area. So I'll skip to the next one. In terms of the contractor, council did award the contract to Chandos Construction. The value of the contract after non-refundable HST is $964,000. It's a stipulated price contract, i.e. it's a fixed price contract, and they're the general contractors. It was a competitive process. We had 5 bids, and this was the low bid, and Chandos is doing construction work at CNL as an example in the area. They're impressive to date. They're able to bring in all their sub trades within a week of award, and they're going to be starting work next week. So they've asked to start 1 week earlier, which is great. So they've shortened that in terms of their start time. We're expecting full completion by November. Next slide. In terms of the budget, what you haven't seen before here is the contingency. So just there will be issues that come up as part of this project that we'll have to address, and I'll speak to them. We know of some already, but the building permit would come out of the contingency. We do have to pay for the building permit for this major reno. The business hive setup is about 63,000. The roof and the HVAC cost 138. The architect and project management at 80, and then office furniture filing systems at 158. And the council chambers, which was previously completed, including renos, technology, and furniture, because we are able to run meetings and live stream was 121. And again, the general contractor at 964. Next slide. So key considerations, just to reiterate this, accessibility is front and center here. We do want to utilize the old attachments space for tenants, and that brings in revenue to the town and helps offset some of these costs associated with the reno. We also want, from a health and safety perspective, ergonomic spaces with modern staff space. I know Kim Bulmer said that my desk was purchased in 1964 used, so it's not necessarily ergonomic. So we're refreshing some spaces, but also keeping in mind general health and safety. We will have a dedicated staff lounge, and that's just so that staff are taking their breaks and lunch and have a dedicated space to do that. We're teaming people together for some synergies amongst departments. So beyond the CAO model, what we do want to do is encourage kind of cross-departmental work and synergies, and part of this project allows that. There will be sufficient meeting space with some conference rooms and boardrooms in the council chambers. We're building in a greater use of technology where we can and where appropriate. And also we want to minimize service interruptions and disruptions as part of the renovation and ensuring service continuation. And at the staff level, when we're moving staff temporarily, we're trying to do so once so that staff aren't moving 2 or 3 times, and also for the public to be able to kind of keep track where they need to go to access services. Next slide. So upstairs, I just want to note 2 things. The old former court spaces, there were 3 offices there. That will become the council boardroom. That will allow us to have, when we don't expect large crowds, to have committee meetings in the council boardroom, but also the BIA and Chamber of Commerce have their monthly meetings now at Town Hall. They'll be able to utilize it, and other groups will as well. In blue, you'll see 2 existing washrooms, which will be combined for the accessible washroom on the 2nd story. So the members of the public and the staff or anyone utilizing the building at that level on the 2nd story will be able to access an accessible washroom. So it's and then we're still keeping the other 2 existing. So we'll have 3 washrooms on the 2nd floor, one of which will meet the accessibility requirements. Next slide. And then on the main floor, in terms of accessible washrooms, so the one on the kind of top left corner, that will be an accessible washroom in the health unit space. And then there will one below, kind of right out of the foyer, where the TV screen is now, will be an accessible washroom that the members of the public can use, staff, and also the business hive. And 2 existing washrooms remain that are currently being used. They stay, they're not accessible. So there'll be a total of 4 washrooms on that space. And also the health unit has 2 half baths kind of in the staff area. Next slide. So timeframes, this is subject to change and confirmation, but this is our best guess at this point. Upstairs staff offices are being completed as we speak. We think the staff in those spaces will be able to move in on Tuesday of next week. The business hive and health unit spaces are being worked on as a priority in terms of the major renos. So that work starts next week. We're hoping to move them in July. And then the health unit, we've communicated with them for an August 1st. So there'll be a staggering there, but we're anticipating all the tenants will be moving over the summer. The rest of the main floor will occur over July and September, and then which will allow staff to be moved in early fall. And then the remainder of the upstairs and lobby, any of the non-critical space in terms of people, will be completed at the tail end of the project. Next slide. So temporary accommodations, just in terms of service accommodation. So the development and environment team have moved out to the rec center upstairs. There were some available office spaces that were available. And so they moved right away. And that means that planning, building, and kind of environmental management are up there. Why they went there, one, there was available space and there's reception and front counter, and it's a public building, so they can be accessible. But members of the public can still pick up and pay for permits that's at Town Hall, but staff are available at Development and Environment upstairs at the Rec Center. CAO clerks and community services will be, as I said, moving into the upstairs offices next week. And Public Works and Asset Management staff were temporarily relocated. So the admin assistant who also works with Fires Over and Fire, Connor, the Director of Infrastructure and Public Works, is on the main floor at Town Hall. And Director Aslin, as am I, we're kind of hovering, but is accessible throughout the renovation, but also in the downstairs boardroom. So staff are still available by telephone, internet, and email. It's just they might not be seated where they were seated before. In July, we're hoping the economic development team is moving into the business hive along with our partners. And as I said, August, the health unit moves in, and then we will temporarily move our finance team in kind of 2 areas into the business hive so we can continue to provide a service to the public without any interruption. And then the remainder of staff will be moving up to those where the council boardroom is going to be located. Those offices won't be dealt with right away, which will allow the finance staff to be located there and within the building. And the health unit will move in. And then the remaining staff will be moving to the first floor in the new refreshed area. That area is really getting new desks, paint, ceiling, and flooring. And we've created some additional office space to accommodate staff. So that's the temporary accommodation schedule. Next slide. Just working from home. So there will be occasions where staff will be working from home. For instance, I'm at home today because all of our spaces are being utilized. But the primary goal as part of this project is service continuation, and temporary accommodations require people to be in the office, with some flexibility to work from home where feasible without impacting services to the public, but also staff synergy. So I just want to note that this is not an opportunity to send everybody home. The goal is to have people in the office and working from home when required. And there's an extract here from our alternative working arrangement policy that speaks to the approvals that are required. So anything beyond 3 days requires my approval, and anything that's sustained or regular requires my approval. So and telecommuting, meaning logging in from home outside of the county of Renfrew or outside the province of Ontario, requires special approval. So the goal here is not have people working from their cottages over the summer. So I just want to alleviate some of those concerns in the sense that no, people will be in the office and they will only work from home within the existing rules that apply, with no impact to services and no impact to staff working closely together on a number of projects. Next slide. Permanent accommodations. So upstairs will really be the council area. So there will be a new council office. If you know where EDO Laverdure sits now, that will be a dedicated council office. So if council needs a desk space for a meeting, that's where you will also pick up your mail. There will be the mayor's area, so his meeting area and his desk space, but also the council boardroom, the council chambers. The upstairs boardroom will be where the staff kind of break area will be. And then the CAO's office, kind of where former development works will be the CAO, the clerk, the deputy clerk, communications and engagement coordinator, as well as community services, the director of library and community services, and our community program and outreach coordinator. So that team is there. One for synergies in terms of working closely with council, but also council has made it clear that community outreach is pretty important. So having the CAO and the director close by is pretty important, along with the synergies with communications. On the lower level, we'll have infrastructure and public works as well as asset management. Sorry, if you could go back. Yep. And then treasury, working closely. So, and planning, development and environment. So although those three staff teams will be there. There will be extra desk space for instance, the director of Parks and Rec comes into town hall to code bills and submit payroll. So there will be a desk that can be used by other staff that are not in the building. And we will also have dedicated staff team for HR support that we get from the county of Renfrew, so that when they're in there, they can work. And then the last piece is there are vaults for proper records keeping on both floors, in addition to storage space in the basement. And I think I've covered it all. So that's it for the update. If there are any questions from council, just one thing I'm going to note is that we've encountered two issues from the contractors so far. One is there's a greater level of asbestos in the old detachment building. The designated substance report was last completed in 2012. It should be maintained more frequently, and we determined that there's greater kind of in the tiles and some of the drywall. So that's going to add some costs that we're going to report back at the next monthly meeting. The other one is the fire panel with the new tenants might require a little bit of extra work just to because we have designated spaces. So those are the only two issues we've encountered so far. If there are any questions, I'd gladly take them. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
I have one. Did you guys
Okay.
ever consider using the garage space, like incorporating that into your renovation, add extra office, boardroom, whatever?
That's a good question, Councillor. It's excluded, one, to kind of keep costs low. The beauty of that is it can always be as a future phase of this project could be incorporated for other space. There's also storage space next to the garage that we'll continue to be able to use that the health unit does not require. But again, that's to your point, that's additional square footage. The roof has been completed, the HVAC is good, but down the road, should we need the garage and the adjoining storage space, it can be transferred into other usable spaces needed. But to keep costs low, it wasn't needed in terms of programmable space at this time. Because it's not heated, it would require additional work. But for now, we don't need that space, and we can continue to use it to store equipment. Public Works uses it quite a lot for storage of different equipment they need in the downtown core.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah, and thank you. And just to add to that, I had 3 questions around that. So is it possible while we're doing design to make sure that, the heat and HVAC, there's a pipe that ends at the wall, any water, if we can pull a pipe to the end of that wall as well, and any electric, just so that if we do utilize it in the future, that it's not a matter of ripping up, jackhammering floors to put water pipes in. It's not a matter of ripping down new ceilings to put wiring in. So if there's a way of end capping stuff right at that wall, because space is going to be the premium, and we're going to have other partnerships. And the other piece is there the possibility of some of the lease revenue? Is there a possibility of putting 5 or 6 or 7% or some percentage aside for that in the eventuality that maybe 5 years from now we end up utilizing that space, so it's not there's not sticker as large a sticker shock? Thank you.
Yes, so the HVAC units on the roof, there are 2 for the new space. I've kept in mind kind of the whole total square footage, so they're slightly oversized to be able to do that. I will speak to the architect in terms of ensuring we're not ripping stuff out, but the storage area off the garage provides kind of a little bit of that flexibility. So hopefully the health unit space won't need to be disturbed once we decide to reprogram the other space, but I'll follow up with the architect. In terms of revenue, we've built into the cost of this reno, the lease payments over 10 years from both the health unit and the business hive are going to offset the actual costs of this renovation. So any additional costs or additional programming space would have to be funded some other way. We're utilizing the 10 years of revenue to offset the capital costs associated with this project.
Would the
So
extra come out of sales? Like we sell some property down the road, that could be utilized put aside for that too.
I think the treasurer would would ensure that any future projects are how we fund them. Whether I think in terms of any revenue from land sales, they would likely go in reserve or be invested. And then at the time, council could determine how to one, fund projects, but also how to use those funds. But yes, that will provide opportunities to do important things like adding additional program space if we need it.
Perfect.
Great. Thank you. And I'm sorry, Councilor Legree, I can't see you. Do you have any questions?
No, I'm all good.
Okay, thank you. So with that, there was no motion. It was an information item. So we'll move to D11, which is the financial statements, that the Corporate Services and Economic Development Committee received this report for information. So could I have a mover, please?
Me?
Okay, Councilor McWhirter. And with that, could we have the report, please? From the
Thank you.
clerk.
Great, thank you, Chairman. So this report is simply an information item, and we're legislated to produce this. So essentially through Section 88.25 of the Municipal Elections Act, all candidates must remit a financial statement for their campaign. It's also referred to as a Form 4. And failure to do so removes a candidate, an elected candidate from office. And if a candidate was not elected and still fails to submit their form, they're also then considered ineligible for to be appointed or elected to any office applicable to the Municipal Elections Act. So I'm happy to say and report to committee that all candidates in the 2022 elections submitted their Form 4s on time. So we don't have to worry about any of that. And this is just an information item to share with you and the public.
Great, thank you. Any questions from committee?
I just have one. If, for instance, somebody forgot or whatever, this would come to council first before someone just ousted a councillor that was elected, right?
No, through the Elections Act, you're provided with notice, you're provided with the guidelines when you are running for office. So it's the candidate's responsibility to submit that. Thankfully, with notice, everyone was very responsive and we didn't have to worry about any of that. But no, notice does not come forth. It's the candidate's responsibility.
Okay, so what happens if a councillor was to submit it and somewhere along the line it got misplaced once it was submitted?
They are filed electronically with the clerk's department and they're also shared on our website for public viewing.
I didn't file mine electronically. I actually handed it in. That's what
Yeah.
I'm referring to. So
Yeah, no problem at all. Nope. So even if you hand a hard copy in, myself in the clerk's department, I scan it, I take that electronically, so it's all filed away safely.
And just if I could just add, the due diligence here, it does not rest with council. It's in the Municipal Elections Act and the clerk. And if there's any concerns with the filings, there's a process outlined in the Municipal Elections Act with a compliance audit committee. So just to be very clear on, council has no role other than receiving this for information. So if there's any breaches of campaign finance or somebody didn't file, as the clerk rightfully and said, the candidates are obligated to meet that, but there is a clear delineation here in terms of council does not have an oversight role with regard to these matters. And just to be clear with everybody, because this has changed over the last kind of decade or so. So if there is any concerns with somebody's financials, there's a process for the public to follow. And there's some clear direction in the Elections Act. So all that rests with the clerk, and Victoria's done a great job in ensuring that giving proper notice and everybody is filed. So that's good news. But having been a clerk in other municipalities that I've been to court on some of these issues, it doesn't, just to allay any concerns in terms of council's role with this. Council has no role in terms of oversight with regard to municipal elections.
Okay, thank you. Any further questions? All those in favor of the motion? It's passed. Thank you, committee. And with that, we'll move to D1.2, licensing bylaw review update. That the Corporate Services and Economic Development Committee received the licensing bylaw review work plan update as information. And if I could have a mover, please. Councillor Legree. So with that, could we have the report from the clerk, please?
Thank you, Chairman. So as stated, this is an information update item. In January 2023, council directed staff to review the licensing bylaws. And we were also asked to address the motorized conveyances on sidewalks and trails in the town of Renfrew. We have created a work plan. We're moving through that. Now you'll see in the work plan, the initial timelines are delayed by a month. There's been some additional notes. I'm speaking with the province on a few matters, specifically relating to the motorized conveyances, which they title micro mobility, which I like more. So actively working on those matters. We'll need a little bit more time, but I do anticipate having some draft bylaws for committee to review towards the end of June, and those will go on to council.
Thank you. Questions, comments from committee? Thank you very much. It's a very, I like the format, and I like the idea that, we're setting goals, and that's very important. So thank you. I'm sorry, did I interrupt somebody?
no, it was just me. I'm just happy to see it moving along. That's great.
Okay. So with that, I'll call the vote. All those in favor? Opposed? None. It's carried. Thank you, committee. And we'll move to D13, which is the Corporate Services and Economic Development Committee recommend Brantford Town Council approve the public notice, accountability and transparency and council pregnancy and parental leave policies required by the Municipal Act 2001. I'm sorry. Could I have a mover, please? Councillor Legree. And if we could have the report, please.
Thank you, Mr. Reeve. Section 270 of the Municipal Act sets out required policies, and I'll just note them and just speak to where we're at with them. Sale and other disposition of land, there's a separate report dealing with that. Hiring of employees, the previous council cleaned that up in terms of our HR policies, so we do have a recruitment and employment policy. The relationship between members of council and the officers and employees of the municipality, that's called the council staff relations policy. And that was previously done when the integrity commissioner was appointed and provided feedback in it. So we have that one. Procurement of goods and services, we did after I arrived here, kind of late summer, early fall of 2022. The next few are the notice to the public. And so that's part of this package. Accountability and transparency, this is part of this package. The delegation of powers and duties, we did that late in the last term, and the new council as part of orientation was briefed on that. And then the manner in which municipality will protect and enhance the tree canopy and natural vegetation in the municipality. Amanda Springer is drafting that policy, and it will be coming forward to the Planning, Building and Environment Committee shortly. And lastly, pregnancy leaves and parental leaves for members of council. So this policy deals with those three. In terms of notice, we just basically set out that we will give notice, how we will give notice, and we make special note of 3 instances where we will do that. One is with the budget process, the second is with the strat plan, and third is with council remuneration. So those would be 3 instances. And accountability and transparency just collates and summarizes a bunch of different things that we routinely do, but that we can put in a policy to prove that we're committed to accountability and transparency. And basically pregnancy and parental leaves basically sets out what would happen should that occur. Basically members, there's in the Municipal Act, if you miss 3 months of meetings, your seat is vacated unless you get approval by council for a leave of absence. What the act was changed to say is that that doesn't apply to pregnancy and parental leave. So the policy, which is pretty standard across municipalities, deals with those situations, and basically committee assignments and how the work would be done. So these are mandated policies. We're not aware of any pregnancy or parental leave requests from this term of council, but you require the policy and it will be in place. And then if next term, if we have 51% of the gender representation in the town of Renfrew run and make it into council, this will deal with the pregnancy question, but also parental leaves going forward. So if there are any questions, I'd gladly take them.
Any questions or comments from committee? Okay, seeing none, I'd like to call the vote. All those in favor? Opposed? None. It's carried. Thank you, committee. And we'll move to D1.4. That Corporate Services and Economic Development Committee recommend Renfrew Town Council approve the disposition and sale of surplus land policy and disposition and sale of surplus rolling stock and equipment policy. Could I have a mover, please? Councillor McWhirter, and if we could have the report, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. My understanding from former Clerk Bulmer, there were some kind of rules around how you would deal with dispositional land. What this does is just bring forward a new policy that sets some clear direction. And basically, there's kind of 2 sets of land, non-marketable. So for instance, if it's a slight strip of land that a neighbor wants because they're building a garage and they don't have space, that's not necessarily a minor strip of land, might not be marketable. So there's processes associated with those lands. And then there's marketable lands that would require an appraisal. And then there's also some exemptions that are outlined in the policy as well, in terms of when we would go and get an appraisal, how we would advertise. It provides us a full scope of, should we want to put a billboard on the land, we want to get a real estate agent, we want to do it by auction. So it just clearly sets out the delineation between the different types of land. In terms of rolling stock and equipment, It just sets out how we would do that. We've been using GovDeals just to ensure that there's consistency in the process. We've also had some questions with regard to trade-ins. So basically at the time of a purchase of a replacement vehicle or piece of equipment, the staff involved would determine the best kind of options in terms of maximizing value with regard to the piece of equipment or rolling stock we're replacing. And should it be a trade-in, they would bring that forward at the time for committee and council's consideration. The other thing is we don't want a traded in corporate vehicle to be purchased by municipal staff immediately and avoid any issues that may have arisen in other municipalities. So we're permitting trade-ins, but basically no one associated with the town would be able to kind of repurchase that trade-in within 12 months. And what that just does is a cooling off period so that we're not kind of playing games with the trade-in. So when we're doing a trade-in because it makes sense for the town to do so, that's fine. In other instances, we may keep it and put it on GovDeals and try to sell it, or like we did with the fire chief's truck, we might repurpose it. And we're trying to make sure that our specs on our pickup trucks, as an example, are a general spec and a general color that the vehicle can stay in the fleet and be utilized. But if it's not needed, it can either be traded in or surplused and through GovDeals or other means of selling. So this provides, I think, clear direction going forward. And then in terms of our land sales that we really want to, as mentioned by Councillor McWhirter, we want to take a look at and proceed to encourage economic development. This provides some clear guidance on the process to do that going forward. So I think that's it from me, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Questions from committee? Seeing none, I'll call the vote. All those in favor? Opposed? None. It's carried. Thank you, committee. We'll move to D1.5. That corporate services. Sorry, my screen just went black. And Economic Development Committee recommend Renfrew Town Council approve the following: a workplace violence, harassment, sexual harassment and discrimination policy, a retirement incentive policy, a vacation and leave policy, and finally a pay and benefits policy. Could I have a mover, please? Councillor Legree, perfect. And if we could have the report, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So the workplace violence. Sorry, there's a knock on the door and there's two dogs in this house. My apologies.
So we should have a policy on animals in the house. I know I need that at my house.
They're our new security system for the office. We'll bring them in and they'll bark at people.
Yeah.
I don't know, Mr. Chair, if you'd like to move on to the next item and I can come back to this one. Oh, they've quieted down, so we're good.
Yeah, no, it's fine. Go right ahead.
Sorry. So the County of Renfrew helped us review our workplace violence, harassment, sexual harassment, and discrimination policy. This is a legislated requirement. We had an existing policy that was pretty good. It was just to fine tune it, and we did a recent health and safety review and wanted to ensure that roles and responsibilities were clearly delineated. And so at the all staff training day on June 1st, we're going to reiterate components of this policy. So thank you to Brady Smith who did the update. The retirement incentive policy was directed to us by council in closed session. We've had over the years different situations where retirement incentives were provided. This clearly outlines the criteria. Basically two instances. The first is when the employee has reached 30 years of service and is eligible for a full OMERS pension. And those requests would come forward to council in closed session if they should occur. The second one, which is less of an automatic in terms of a negotiation, would be 25 years of service and a partial OMERS pension. And then that would be brought forward to council to discuss the potential amount, but whether or not we would proceed. And then lastly, council has the opportunity to deny any retirement incentive request should it be required. So why would we do this type of policy? It's important to get some sense of kind of workforce as we plan our workforce and ensure we have the people in place to do the work, is that we can do some good succession planning. You've noticed of late, we've had a number of people retire. We were very lucky to have great solid talent within the ranks that were able to step up, and they require our support going forward, and we're committed to their training and the good work that they continue to do for us, but into the future. But having a good sense of future retirements is pretty important. So this policy just includes the direction we received from council previously. And lastly, the vacation and leave policy and the pay and benefits policy were reviewed by the previous council. This is for non-unionized staff. And it replaced the terms and conditions for non-unionized staff. And legal counsel just did a summary review with recent legislative changes and just clarified some language. So the substantive pieces of what's in the policy have not changed compared to what was approved by council in the previous term in November. Any questions? I gladly.
So to questions from members of the committee. I have one question, and it's regarding section 4 of the retirement one. I'm wondering, given the expansion, the recent expansion of OMERS to what we originally thought were part-time employees and then might have been ineligible in the past, have we conducted a study internally to see if we have any responsibilities? I don't want to call it liabilities, but financially liabilities, but are there any responsibilities?
Jen, I was going to call her Bennett. Jen Fleming, our compensation and finance specialist, has reviewed it and ensured compliance. And basically what they're offered now is they can choose to join or they can wait and join later. And so far uptake has been, it depends on the person's circumstance, if they're late in career or if they're early on. So it hasn't been as much of a liability as we thought. The other thing that's, and Aaron can correct me here, is because we provide payment in lieu of benefits for our part-time casual staff, there was an allocation that was kind of in lieu of OMERS. So from a kind of financial sustainability of the town, we were kind of covered off. So the 2023 budget, when it was prepared by Aaron, with Jen and Mitchell's support, factored that in. And I think we're within budget. I don't know, Aaron, if we have a sense of how many part-time casual have signed up as part of the changes.
I just had Jen come in, so it was good timing for her. But do you recall how many?
Homers.
Yeah.
I did just have 2 summer students that signed up just recently, and then maybe like approximately 5 other part-time.
So about 7. 2 summer students, 5 other part-time employees have signed up for this.
Okay, thank you. And further question. So if I've been a part-time employee for 10 or 12 years and I decide to sign up, do I can buy back my time, as I understand it. And does the town, do I pay for the town's portion, or the town have to bridge it or anything like that?
It would be the same as the other buyback where you would have to pay double contributions.
Okay, good. Thank you very much.
And the good part, I think, is the pension. So it's the buyback, but it's also the time in. So it's good to see students think of their future as I approach retirement slowly but surely.
When I was a student, my future consisted of what happens after 4:30. So I'm glad to see somebody's a little deeper thought than I was.
How am I going to pay for pizza? Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Who's got the 20 for the gas? All right. So thank you very much for that. And with that, any questions from committee? Seeing none, I'm going to call the vote. All those in favor? Opposed? None. It's carried. Thank you very much. And we'll move to D1.6, the commemorative naming process policy. So with that, if we could have the report, please. Oh, I'm sorry. I better read them. Went ahead a little too fast here. That the Corporate Services and Economic Development Committee recommend Brantford Town Council adopt a commemorative naming policy. Can I have a mover, please? So we'll go with Councillor McWhirter, and if I could have the report, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So we are getting some kind of informal requests, understanding that there are some people in town that have made some significant contributions to our community. And commemorative naming is really means officially naming something after a person, person's family, or group. What the policy sets out is to ensure that, because these can be tricky matters when involving people, is ensuring consistency and fairness in the process, a proper and transparent approval process, and appropriateness of the proposed naming. So the criteria that's set out in the policy, we would, when an application is received, would really deal with one or more of these. So one, the person lost their life serving with the armed forces or made a significant contribution as a veteran. Must have demonstrated excellence, courage, or exceptional dedication to service in ways that bring special credit to the town of Renfrew, the county of Renfrew, the province of Ontario, and/or Canada. Is an original inhabitant family with the town of Renfrew of historical significance. Demonstrated an extraordinary community service record with noteworthy contributions to the community, or made a significant financial contribution to a park, project, or facility. So it's not like you have to hit all of these. In my experience in other jurisdictions, usually some of these meet more than one, but those would be the criteria that would be assessed. So in terms of process, a request would come to this committee, and if the committee felt that it had merit, we would then go to public consultation to hear from the public if there are any concerns. I should note that the person has to consent to something being named after them, or if they've deceased, the family must consent. So that's part of the process. And then following public consultation, it would come back to this committee and then to council for approval. And usually there's some sort of commemorative event or a plaque or a sign that comes with it. I should note, though, that in terms of naming streets, there is protocol associated with duplicate street names through the county. So we clear all those with the county of Renfrew in terms of 911. So for instance, you could have a family name, a surname like Tremblay already. I'm using mine as a name. There's a Tremblay Road in Ottawa. But if you wanted to name something after my father, Jean Tremblay, when there's already a Tremblay Road, you won't likely be able to name the road. So basically the county provides some direction on those matters. But that offers an opportunity to look at a room or a park or another building. So there's different things that can be named after a person or a group in terms of commemorative naming. The other thing I should say that it also doesn't preclude us from not naming something after someone because of naming rights or sponsorship. So when a request comes in, staff would help guide kind of the applicant in terms of what the best scenario is before we bring that to council. So this is just meant to have a kind of clear, concise policy in place with a clear process, but also clear criteria to move forward with.
Thank you. Any questions? And I'll lead off with one. The policy is silent on how council might consider removing someone should something happen. Is that a separate policy, or is that something we have to think about adding in down the road?
I think that's a fair comment. I think that would be done by resolution, or if it was a bylaw, repealing of the bylaw. What we could do is add a section prior to this going to council to speak to that commemorative naming could be removed at a later date due to some sort of circumstance, and that would be done by council. So I can add that, Mr. Chair, prior to council.
Okay, thank you. Committee, does that meet your threshold of comfort?
Yeah, I'm good with that. On a case-to-case basis, that'd be great. Yep.
Okay. Thank you. So with that, if there are no further questions or comments, I'd like to call the vote. All those in favor? Opposed? None is carried. Thank you, committee. And we'll move to D1.7, which is the CAO's quarterly and work plan update. So the Corporate Services and Economic Development Committee recommend Renfrew Town Council receive the CAO's quarterly and work plan update December 2022 to May 2023 for information purposes. A mover, please. Councillor Legree, and if we could have the report, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So my apologies, this came kind of a month later. There's been a lot going on, but I should just say it's really fulfilling work working for the town of Renfrew. I'm approaching my 1-year anniversary at the end of June. I just want to say that time flies when you're having fun, but I'm really excited about the team and all the folks that have moved into new roles, and they're doing great. So even Connor and Kelly most recently, but Aaron and Victoria on this call, Carolyn as well. So kudos to the strength of the team, and I think everybody is motivated and moving forward. I won't go through kind of the content, but can gladly take questions. I just want to note on the work plan, we joke about it, but it sets clear direction on what is expected of me. And I know that was set by the previous council, and we'll work on in the fall, the next kind of version of this. And it's my work plan, but then it also drives the work of the department heads in each of the service areas as well. I just want to note that kind of changes in timing are highlighted in blue. Gray are basically the completed items, and a lot of these had ongoing work, and if they're on target, I note ongoing or on target. And then you'll see some in yellow where what the Reeve had done as the chair of HR was set the kind of the goals, the 25 goals and objectives. And then what I did is I broke that down in terms of my interpretation of getting that work done. In some of those cases, some of that was a little aggressive or has to wait for other things to happen. So there's a few instances where I'm recommending that they're still very important, but that they go into the 2024 plan. So instance, working with seniors organizations. So we've put some projects and people in place to work on that, but also the health providers side of things, joint marketing with other municipalities. So there's only a few examples where I think from a time frame and budget and collaboration standpoint, some of that should wait. But in general, I think of all the actionable items under these 25 goals, I think we're doing pretty well. And I want to thank the staff team for kind of sticking with it despite all the change and the great work that the team is doing. And so if there's any questions on the work plan or the summary, I'd gladly take them.
Thank you. Questions, comments from members of committee? I'll just start off with yes, it was aggressive. And yes, it was meant to reassure staff and the community and previous council and this council that there was the opportunity for structured and focused change with a view to being strategic, as well as recognizing the many responsibilities of the corporation to the community first and the surrounding community, but then also to our employees as well. So the ones that you highlighted in yellow make sense because they were part of larger initiatives or had to wait for building blocks to be put in place. So I'm quite comfortable with what you've produced and the results to date, and really look forward to sitting down as we formulate the next one in the fall. And so members of committee.
Peter?
Yes, Mayor.
Yeah, I just wanted to just acknowledge I appreciate I don't know what the right word is, the chaos at times or the rapid change that has happened since Rob's come on in a very positive way, I must say. But his leadership and watching it evolve and filter down to the staff has been pretty remarkable. And I just want to sort of give a great appreciation, kudos to the staff for adapting and adjusting not only to a new council, a new mayor. Honestly, I think the only thing that has stayed the same is the Reeve, pretty much. So, I think it's just it's a testament to Rob's leadership and his leadership team and how the town staff is evolving and new staff coming in and the passion that you all have. It's actually tremendous to see. I know a lot of people hide under their desks when I come in because my brain doesn't stop, and I appreciate the patience with that. But it's been a pretty exciting thing to watch, and I just want to say thank you to everybody. But Rob, it's great working with you and having you here. So thank you.
Thank you. Members of committee. And so with that, seeing no further comment, I'll call the vote. All those in favor? Opposed? None. It's carried. Thank you very much. And we'll move to D2.1. 2022 Water and Sewer. That Corporate Services and Economic Development Committee received this report as information. Can I have a mover, please? And Councillor McWhorter. And so with that, could we have the report from, I see Jen Fleming. Is she giving the report or is it Aaron?
I'll give the report. I have the assistance of Jen here with me, but
Okay. Hiding off camera. I'm sort of surprised at that, Jennifer.
Yeah. Kudos to her for preparing these reports because she did a great job on them.
thank
So this report's more for information purposes, as it's stated. This process is one that occurs on an annual basis. It's a transfer of the water and sewer arrears to the property tax accounts. And we are obligated under the Municipal Act to perform this transfer. So every year in April, this is what happens in January and February on the water and sewer bill that goes out to the residents of the town of Renfrew. They're notified of this transfer, that if any of their unpaid arrears are not paid by April 17th, that this transfer will happen. So on April 20th, the Treasury Department completed this transfer, and you will see Jen has prepared a summary of the last 5 years of the accounts and the balances that have been transferred. So in 2022, there was 249 accounts that had arrears. A total of 219,000 was transferred to our property tax accounts. This is an increase of 35,000 from 2021. You will see over the last couple of years, there's no real consistency as to the balances and the amount of accounts that are in arrears. If there's any questions, I'd be happy to answer or have Jen assist with answering.
Thank you. Members of committee, please. Any questions? I think it's interesting to note that the numbers are fairly consistent. Initially when I got the report, I was worried it was a bit of a COVID hangover. But when I look at 2019 with 276 properties, and the number was $274,000. 218 was 254. So the numbers seem consistently around the 220 to in the last 3 years, 220 to 250. So that's while not reassuring, it's informative. So thank you.
Yes. Thank you.
And so with that, is it safe to assume that at the end of 2022, we did receive 183,000 plus interest from the 2021? Yeah.
Transfer. That'd be something we'd have to take a look at the tax accounts to see where the arrears stand on those specific accounts that were transferred. We do have repeat offenders that every year this process happens. So it would be more something that we'd have to take a look at the tax accounts and see if those were caught up to date or not. Yeah.
But we're not writing off huge amounts of unpaid.
We most certainly don't write these accounts off. It's more whether this property, like if a customer were to let their account go into tax arrears, it would be more so if they're in the 2-year mark that it would go up for property tax sale. But it all depends, because there's some that they do let their water transfer, and then that just gets added onto their mortgage and their mortgage company pays.
Okay, so we're not, so the basic
town-
premise, the basic premise of the system paying for the water system is still there. It's not violated by writing off, $20,000 or anything like that.
No.
Okay.
Mr. Chair,
perfect.
if I
Yes,
can, maybe if Aaron, with Mitchell's assistance, we could do just an information report on where we are on tax arrears, maybe
Sure.
at the next meeting, which would give you a sense with year end and where we're at. And then there's some measures I know the town, and speaking to Aaron, we weren't aggressively pursuing requirements and tax sales were required, but if people are 2 or 3 years in arrears, those situations don't miraculously get better. So maybe we can give the committee a summary of where we're at on the tax arrear side as well.
For sure. Yeah.
Perfect, thank you. And so with that committee, if I don't see any further hands, I will call for the vote. So All of those in favor? Opposed? None, it's carried. Thank you, committee. And we'll move to D.2.2, which is the Employee Assistance Program. The Corporate Services and Economic Development Committee approved the provision of the Employee Assistance Program by Inkblot Employee Assistance 5-hour model, effective September 1, 2023, and further that staff be directed to provide notice of termination to Homewood Health, effective September 1, 2023. Could I have a mover, please? And I'm sorry, Councillor Legree. Good, thank you. Sorry, you're on my other side of my screen. And so with that, if we could have the report, please.
Yes. Thank you, Chair Emo. So in 2021, the town entered into an agreement with Cowan Homewood Health to offer staff an employee assistant program for mental health support, counseling for grief, legal, as well as marriage counseling. And during our group benefits review with Gallagher, they reviewed the options for the employee assistance program. It was noted that Cowan was not necessarily a highly recommended provider and wasn't included in the selected EAP providers when they went out for their review. Out of the 5 EAP providers, Inkblot was the highly recommended, and it has a 90% employee retention rate. They have a more comprehensive focus on mental health support services and offer 5 hours of service for the year, with the option of utilizing the same counselor each time you revisit for your services. The annual cost for Inkblot is $3,428. This is an increase of $101.64 from in comparison to our Cowan Homewood Health program that we're currently using. I do believe that the services are better with Inkblot. So a small increase I think is worthwhile. And if this is approved by council and committee, we would move forward to switching providers and providing termination notice to Homewood 90 days prior to the end of our current contract. So that would be the end of August 2023. If you have any additional questions, I have Jen here that can assist. And I know you have been provided with the summary from Gallagher that outlines kind of the services that they provide. But if you do have any questions, I'm most willing to try and answer them.
Okay, questions, comments?
I think it's pretty straightforward. It's makes sense.
Okay, thank you. So just a quick question. Sometimes service providers get their knickers in a knot and say, okay, if you're canceling on September 1st, why don't we just go July 1st? Is there the possibility that we could engage Inkblot early should Homewood suddenly decide not to offer service? So there's not a gap.
I can't see why not.
Okay.
Chair Emo, but that's something we can definitely look into for sure.
Okay.
Okay.
Perfect. Thank you. Any further questions, comments? All right, with that, we'll call the vote. Those in favor? Opposed? None? It's carried. Thank you very much, committee. And thank you to staff for that excellent report. And with that, we'll move to D.2.3. That Corporate Services and Economic Development Committee recommend Brantford Town Council approve awarding group benefits plan services to Beneva, insurances and financial services effective January 1, 2024. And further, staff be directed to provide notice of termination effective January 1, 2024 to the Municipal Benefits Committee and Manulife. Can I have a mover, please? Councillor McWhirter. And if we could have the report, please.
Thank you, Chairman. So since 2003, the town of Renfrew has been working with the Group Benefits and Municipal Benefits Committee, which includes the County of Renfrew and participating lower tier municipalities. As directed by the Finance Committee last year, we were advised to have a review of our benefits So the town of Renfrew engaged with Gallagher in a two-part project for our group benefits plan. The first part was a benefit plan benchmarking, and the second part of the project was an independent review of our current benefit plan carrier and financial position. So they approached 10 insurance companies. The majority declined to submit proposals due to the carrier's inability to be competitive on the rates, or their inability to match the plan design and the associated classes that we have. Beneva did submit quite a competitive quote. You do have the package that Gallagher did give to us, but I can outline some of the benefits. So the results based on the Beneva submission show cost savings of approximately $56,000 for the first year, with the extended rate guarantee and a rate cap of 10% on the first renewal. This provides a cost certainty for up to 28 months based on the date of implementation. So based on January 1st, 2024 implementation. It's Gallagher's recommendation that the town strongly consider the quote, change carriers as of January 1st. Some of the benefits, in addition to the long-term disability enhancement, is the removal of the annual deductible on extended health care. We're adding paramedical practitioner, so $500 per practitioner per year for chiropractor, osteopath, the podiatrist, chiropodist, massage naturopath, and $1,000 per calendar year for physiotherapy and psychologist, social worker, psychoanalyst, and psychotherapist. We have basic dental at 100% co-insurance, and we're adding major dental at 50% co-insurance. Basic major at $2,000 combined per year maximum. We're also adding orthodontic coverage for children, only $2,500 for lifetime, maximum 50% co-insurance. So these enhancements are factored into the annual savings. As I said before, it's a $56,000 savings. So this is an estimated 0.5% levy increase of dollars in savings based on the prior rate increases that the town saw from 21 to 22. It was an approximate 15.8% or $55,000 increase. And then from 22 to 23, we saw a 10% increase or $41,400 increase in our benefits. So I have Jen here as well to help me. She worked with Rob and I on preparing this and meeting with Gallagher. So any questions you guys have, we'd be happy to answer.
If I can just add one point. is
Certainly.
that this has to do with the non-union group, and just on the so in terms of all of our unionized staff, benefits are factored into the collective bargaining process. So those would have to be negotiated. Any plan changes would be through the collective bargaining process. And just in terms of kind of the medical practitioners, I should note that this is not additional coverage. We've just kind of cleaned it up because physiotherapy was unlimited, and then we had limited. So we've kind of provided some consistency around some of those paramedical practitioners and added the mental health piece, which was not covered before, which we're seeing is increasingly important. And then we would cover I read orthopedics once and thought it was orthodontics. So we'd cover stuff for your shoes, but not braces. So we've cleaned up that based on Gallagher's competitive review. So when we did the salary comparisons in the previous term, they also looked at total compensation, including benefits, and where we were kind of behind the curve. So these are all improvements we can make without impacting the bottom line and still see $56,000 of savings. And just to outline what Aaron just did with Jen's good work as well on this file, we were seeing $50,000 increases on average every year. So we know just based on this year's dollars, we're saving 56. But if you think of the 10+% increases, we're probably looking shy of $100,000 of savings. The only kind of interesting part to highlight is that yes, municipal collaboration is important. Yes, being part of the municipal benefits committee was good. And for a lot of lower tiers who don't have the number of people in the benefits program, it's really beneficial. But in our case, we have sufficient people on the plans that this review has shown that we can kind of stand on our own and achieve significant savings. So I just want to thank Jen and Aaron for their work on this file as well.
Okay, thank you. Councilor McWhorter, please.
Just a quick question, Rob, through you, Chair. Did you already talk to the union? Because I know, like you said, this has got to go, or is this something that has to go to union first for negotiation?
So we have not mentioned it to the union. We would keep this in our pocket for in terms of employer options as part of collective bargaining. So these benefits apply to non-union only, and as each of the collective agreements come up, or if there's a willingness to look at this early, then it would be part of our negotiations in terms of which is always a give and take, as I know Revimo. So this is one that we can have in our toolkit, but for now, this only applies to the non-union groups that related to the benefits plan.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Any further questions? So this is a very good news story. Benefits are always tricky in terms of cost and making sure a level of service, and it certainly looks like from the presentation, level of service is enhanced in critical areas for us, and it's cost effective and allows us to direct our finances to other areas of the corporation. So congratulations, it really looks good, and I'm glad to see it come forward. So with that, seeing no further questions, I'm ready to call the vote. All those in favor? Opposed? None? It's carried. Thank you very much. And we'll move to D2.4, which is the final tax rates. And so with that, the Corporate Services and Economic Development Committee recommend that Renfrew Town Council adopt the final tax rates and draft bylaw 40-2023 as presented. Mover, please. Councilor Legree, and if we could have the report, please.
Thank you, Chair Emo. So on April 25th, the town adopted the 2023 budget, which included in that was the total tax levy that was required to be raised by the town of $9,654,692, which out of that total amount includes the education portion of the PILs and heads and beds, as well as hydro dams. Those are amounts that the town gets to keep. You can see the breakdown of the amount that's located at the bottom of this report. So with that increase that is required in the levy, it's a calculation that gets put into Opta once the county has input their ratios, which typically occurs around the end of April. So after our levy is input into Opta, it creates the town's rates, which you will find located in the bylaw attached for your approval. Just to note, some of the rates are as follows. The residential is 0.01081286. So compared to 2022's town rate for residential was 0.010496117, and our commercial rate falls at 0.01962210. Compared to 2022, it fell at 0.019044740. Any questions that you guys might have, I can happily assist in answering.
Okay, seeing none, I do recognize the familiar sprawl on some of that documentation. And so with that, seeing no questions or comments, I'd like to call the vote. All those in favor? Opposed? None. It's carried. Thank you very much. And we will move to F, which is committee minutes. And if I could have a mover, please, that the Corporate Services and Economic Development Committee confirm the minutes of committee meeting 32023 dated April 18, 2023. So a mover, please. Councilor Legree. And are there any comments or questions, concerns? All right, seeing none, I'll call the vote, please. All those in favor? Opposed? None. It's carried. Thank you, committee. And I can report to you and the community that our next regular scheduled meeting of the Corporate Services and Economic Development Committee is scheduled for June 20th, 2023 at 10 a.m. And of course, it will be broadcast through YouTube. And so with that, remind me, please, do I need a mover or can I just adjourn? I can just adjourn? Okay. Too many different venues in the last couple of months to really pay attention, really nail down adjournment, which is probably the most important piece. So thank you very much. We're adjourned. I really appreciate the depth of reporting, certainly on behalf of committee, and certainly the preparation of committee members. Good questions, and I like the ability to have a good, honest dialogue. So thank you, and enjoy the rest of your day, everybody.
Thanks, Peter. So I'm just cutting everybody off from live stream. And I apologize that my camera was off the entire time. I was having